Hello, everybody. We're waiting for some people. Hello, Hanasara. How are you? Hello, Sophie. Hello, Looks and Locks. We're just gonna wait for Sarit to pop up. Hopefully she will. How's everybody's Monday going? How's everybody enjoying the heat? I'm waving to you. I'm happy to hear you're fine. Oh, hi, Sarit. Let me figure out how to add you. I think I know how. 1 second. Invite. Hello, Zita. Hello, Kohan Yehuda. Hey, Sarit. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
Okay. Good to see you.
Oh,
Do you see me okay? Am I propped up enough? The connection's
yeah,
okay?
I
Amazing.
hear you. Hear me? Is there a
Yes, I
delay?
hear you. Maybe a tiny bit, but not terrible.
Let me move over. Hold on.
Hopefully we'll get better.
There's like one spot in my room that has like Wi-Fi. That's
The better
normal.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I'll remember that.
How you doing?
Amazing. Okay. Happy Monday. I was just thinking, I'm jealous that your Monday is pretty much over because it's late by you,
Yeah.
and I
It
still
was
have like
one
6
of
meetings
those
ahead of
days.
me.
It was one of those days that I was like, can it end? Let it end.
It ended. Yeah, exactly. Well, this is hopefully your last thing, and then you could just chill because I still have so many things ahead of me. Anyways, amazing to see you. Thank you for doing this with me. And should we start with like I like had a few points that I wanted to talk about. And like I think I shared with you, one of the things that stuck out to me, and you told this to me in passing, was about how our generation is the healing generation that we're in. And that like that's the reason why everything is like iPhone, iPad, everything's with the I. So I wanted to talk about that because I know that with OKclarity and even within my own life, like everybody's like, we're healing this, we're healing that. I'm on my healing journey. I think it became like a phrase and a lingo that our generation and the younger generation uses, which I think is a good thing. And I wanted to hear your perspective on that.
So it's funny because a lot of my clients complain about that. Actually, like, oh, what a selfish generation. I. And like, how many times am I going to come here, Sarit? And you're going to tell me my mother, my father, my uncle. And I'm not big on blame. I feel like our parents messed up and their parents messed up and our grandparents messed up and nobody's perfect. Like I always joke with my kids that my mom was strict, so because of that I was very lenient because it was hard for me that she was strict, and my kids are super strict because it was hard for them that I was lenient. So like,
Uh,
what's good? I don't know what's good. I think that it's
yeah,
really about like
we all
the
we all
pendulum
bend
that,
like the
yeah,
paper.
it's the pendulum that swings back and forth, and we're always trying to go into balance. And so I actually love that it's the I generation because I feel like it's connected to Geula. I feel like when it's so many generations where we were like in fight or flight, the Holocaust, pogroms, inquisitions, exiles, and it's the first generation really where, and we're still being persecuted, don't get me wrong,
Yeah, I was
but
thinking
really
that.
the majority, that never goes away, but the
Yeah.
majority really of our issues is not where we're going to put food on our table or surviving, our day. It's more, we have the space and the time to really search inward, and we're the generation of Mashiach. And so Hashem is basically saying, okay, we have all this generational trauma, and you're going to be the one, this generation is going to be the one that's going to wipe it out. You're going to have to go through it. If I had told my mom, when I was little, Mom, do you want to do this like past life regression? She'd be like, what are you saying? Like, what? It sounds like a vodazara.
Yeah.
Whereas today, so many people do it. I was talking to a very big rabbi last week, and he called me and he's like, oh, Sarit, do you do past life regression? I'm thinking to myself, I don't believe that this like Litvisher rabbi, I'm not going to say his name, is calling me to ask me to see if I do past life regression. I'm like, I feel like I'm in the twilight zone. you know, like, you know,
Yeah.
it's incredible. It's amazing. And I think it's a really good thing. And I
Yeah.
think people are finding it a little bit annoying a little bit because they're like, okay, how much do I have to clear? Like I got it already, but apparently
Mm.
not. Like, you know, we're here to fix. And the good news is, as we usually have a very long life according to how much we need to fix. So I always say, like, if I'm on that trajectory, then I could live like 300 years. So I'm okay with
I
that.
love it. I love how you're so deep, Sarit. Like this is always what's funny to me. Like you drop like a deep bomb and Rivka's on, so hi Rivka.
Hi,
Um,
Rivka. You know, like
and
when I'm on lives, when I do lives, I can't like read the people and talk to you because I can't do two
yeah,
things at once. So
yeah,
like you're gonna have to like tell
tell
me who's
you.
coming
Yeah,
on
yeah. So
because
just for
I can
Rivka, make
only
that
like focus
exception.
on you.
Okay, amazing. No, but I was just saying how I love how you make it fun. Like you make healing fun and funny, and like you'll drop like this like bomb of like an insight that's like gonna shatter someone or something. But then it's also like, I'll live for 300 years, and like, and I believe it, you know?
It's funny because I have a lot of secular clients. I think only like 20% of my clientele is from,
Mm.
and you know, when they come to me, they think, oh, this religious woman, you know, what is she going to say to me? Is she going to like, you know, and afterwards they're like, ah, you're not from. I'm like, yes, I am. And they're like, but like, whatever. You're like one of us, you know? And like,
Yeah,
when I speak to modern Orthodox people, they're like, okay, but you're not, you know, you're not from, you're one of us, you know? And I'm
you're one of
like,
us. Yeah. Well, I think
I
that's what makes you
am,
unique, that you
I
have
am
a way
from.
of doing that. I
Right.
know that, but I think you also have a way of making everyone feel like you are one of them, which is what's special. Honestly, I can speak from
And
personal
I
experience.
think that, you know, we're talking about like, okay, clarity and what you created. I think that that's what's really special about finding the right therapist for yourself or the right healer for you, because I think that there's so many different kinds of healings today and so many different kinds of therapists, because we live in a generation where everybody wants it to be relatable to them. And I don't think everybody is necessarily for me, you know, but I think that today we live in a society where there's so many different kinds of therapists and therapy that everybody can find what's suitable for them, you know?
Mm-hmm. 100%, 100%. I was just speaking to someone before our call. I had a call with someone else from the UK, and he was telling me how he's a big believer in psychedelics and how that's going to be like the future. Like that's what and there's many people that I speak to about that, and we've had this conversation as well. And it's just like you said, this is the healing generation, and I feel like everybody's looking for what will heal, what's going to be the right fit for them, whether it's modality, whether it's person. You were saying something before about past life regression. Do I know what that is? Like for sure, people that are listening don't know. So can you explain that? And even for myself, I'm like, do I not know the term and I just know what it is, or is it specific? Like, just explain it. I guess would be helpful if
So,
you can.
I mean, there's basically an idea, and a lot of therapists do it today, where they believe that the subconscious mind holds all our memories, not just the memories of this generation, but all the previous generations. Some people think it's not true. Some people think that your subconscious is imagining something where it's creating a story that's fitting whatever it's trying to release. It's considered to be more controversial. Like a lot of the medical world thinks it's like, you know, it's not true. It's just a figment of the imagination. But
Mm.
um, I do believe that it's true. And personally, I've done it with people, and I've gone to do it myself. And basically, you know, I have an amazing story about a woman, one of my clients, who we did a lot of her childhood trauma, why she wasn't being able to like um, free herself from her financial issues. And I said, so and I felt like I never dealt with past lives. It wasn't something that I dealt with, but I felt like working with her, like I've done it, like I've cleaned it, like there's nothing there, like it must be a past life issue. And then I called the very big Rebbe, who's the Rebbe that told me to become a healer. I don't want to say his name because I don't want to get him into trouble,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I asked him, I'm like, am I allowed to, you know, do past life regression, or is it us? Or I actually thought he would be like, no way, you know, he's a very like straight shooter. But he said to me, only if it's really related to their issue. Like, don't start digging into your past life. That's what he told me. He's like, you can do you can release person from their past life trauma. So I was shocked, honestly. Until then, I didn't even know that it was like a possibility. Do you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
I saw that in a past, so I did a past life regression on her the way that I do it, which I think is different than most people. And basically we went to a memory, and she remembered that she had been in a position in a past life where, I don't want to get into the details of it, but where she had a tremendous amount of shame with money. And the shame was so big that she used to, in that past life, hide a lot of the things that she used to purchase with money, because the money came from like a not a good way. And she, when she realized this, we healed it, we let it go, we released it. She basically was so shocked, because she said to me, in this lifetime, I have a very big problem where, since I was a little girl, if I ever went shopping with my mom, like in a department store, I would take whatever I bought and put it in like a garbage bag. I would bring with me like a supermarket bag and hide all the things that I bought.
Wow.
And she's like, and everybody thought it was the weirdest thing, but it was, since I can remember myself, like a little girl, she's like, I always carried this shame of whatever it was that I purchased. And she actually had written a novel for years that she was trying to get it edited and trying to get someone to pick it up. And once we healed it, and once she realized that that was the reason why she always felt ashamed of everything she bought, because she had so much money shame that she inherited, that I think a week later she got a call from an editor, and they basically took her book, and her book was finally printed, and
Wow.
and years she was sitting on this, and she felt so stuck. And after we did that past life regression, it totally released. So,
Incredible.
you know, some psychologists will look at that and say, oh, she made up that story in the figment of her imagination, her subconscious created it, and in order, because it was sitting on some sort of trauma. That could be true. There's no way to really prove it, you know, but either way it works. So
Yeah, that's amazing. And
you know,
you could
when
remember
I got
a past life memory?
I said, okay, I'm doing
That's
it.
it.
What?
A person could remember, like she remembered that memory of hers.
So
She remembered the past life
she didn't remember it until we went, you know, like
through
under.
it.
Yeah.
Wow, incredible. That is incredible. No, thanks for sharing that. That's pretty cool. Okay,
But
see,
again,
so that's one of the
you
things. I
have to
figure
ask your
like, yeah,
rabbi.
people don't
So
know what that is.
I don't know if all rabbis go by this kind of stuff. You know, I don't know.
Right, exactly. No, but everybody teach their own, you know, like obviously people seek out the healing that they feel like they need and that they will get permission for, essentially.
Yeah.
I think our generation is pretty good about that, about doing that. Um, should we talk about like how it works with the stones, and also how, because I feel like this is new for people, right? Like it was new for me. I feel like it's new for many people that are going to be listening to this. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you use stones? And what I'm even more fascinated by is like how you're able to tap into the subconscious of the person that you're with.
Right. So I'll start with the crystals.
Yeah.
I actually never ever, I didn't know a single solitary thing about crystals. Like, I think in my like 20s or 30s, I had seen like crystal stores, and I was just like, I actually thought it was idolatry. I thought it was like weird people are into crystals, like, you know, those like the sandal wearing, like,
Yeah.
yeah, like I had zero connection to it actually, and zero like desire to even, like, I just thought it was the weirdest thing. I was like, oh, crystal, like, the only thing I knew about crystals then was that, like, you know, people like held on to it and prayed with it. I thought it was like not even permissible, you know. And when I went to this big Hasidic Rebbe, I was in my mid-30s. He told me that I was a healer and that I should do healing, and I was like, you know, I knew I was intuitive and I was born with intuition, but I didn't know that like I could do anything with it. And he said to me, but I don't want you to just rely on your intuition. I want you to learn something else. And he actually was the one that said, just start to look for visions of things you can study, and I'll tell you what's good and what's not. And I was listing him all these things that were coming up, and somebody had mentioned to me, oh, there's something called crystal stone healing. And I was sure that the Rebbe would say, absolutely not. But he said, yeah, that's it, crystals. And I was like,
Wow.
okay, I didn't even know that it was allowed. But I studied under somebody from, and it was actually ended up being one of the most fascinating things I ever studied in my life. I actually also have a terrible memory, and you have to learn like the names of hundreds of stones and their meanings, and like, you know, how hard they are, how soft they are, and like what part of the body they belong to. And I was so connected to it that like I remembered all the time, and it was weird.
Wow.
Like till today, my kids are like, "How come you couldn't remember the names of the crystals and you don't remember our name?" I'm always like calling my kids by like every other name of every, like, my nieces and nephews until I get it right. But I definitely, when I started learning it, I started to understand that, you know, even and I never even realized how much Judaism has crystals in it. Like the Kohen Gadol, he wore on his breastplate the 12 different stones that belong to 12 different tribes, and he couldn't do his avoda without it. And that wasn't considered avoda zara, you know. And really, when I was studying the halachas behind it, I realized that avoda zara is a very tricky thing. Like, if you take antibiotics with the intention that it's just the antibiotics fixing you and not Hashem, that's also avodah zarah. So people have to be careful to not make the thing, it doesn't matter what that thing is, the healing, but Hashem, and to understand that the thing that we use as a modality for healing is just a conduit, but healing ultimately comes from Hashem. So you shouldn't put your faith in the actual thing, but it's just a transmission for Hashem. So even a Kohen, like for example, the stone of the tribe of Benjamin is called the Yashpeh. So the Yashpeh means literally Yeshpeh, I have a mouth. Now, why was Benjamin given that stone? Because they had the power to control their mouth, and they were able to keep secrets, you know. So they forever had that as their stone. That meant that they had that strength. You know what I mean? Like Shevet Levi is the emerald. Emerald is a reflection of Torah and wisdom. And it actually helps a lot of the brain things that people like. People have issues, like medical issues with the brain. So it's very good for memory retention. And so every tribe had a reason for why each stone was connected to them. And Rabbeinu Bachaya actually talks about in at length about the stones and what they mean, and there's so many Torah sources for it. So it doesn't have to be a conflict. I'm sure that other religions like Hindu and whatever go into different sort of meanings behind it, and I don't know, maybe they worship it or whatever, but it doesn't have anything to do with Judaism's version of crystals and stones, you know?
Right. That's
I mean,
beautiful.
I also made a bracelet company called the Healers Collection, where, you know, you wear them. Are
And
you wearing them now? Let's see
I
if you're
have a
wearing
ton of
them.
them. I have them right here. One second. One second.
How
I
you
literally have like,
doing?
I think I've got like almost, check this out. And like, this is
Oh,
just half of them. Like, I for sure have a ton more. When I type, they go on my computer and they make me so nervous. I'm like not great about wearing them consistently, but they are beautiful. And every time I wear them, people are like complimenting them and asking me where I got them. Then I have to explain that they're like healing, and then they're like, "What's wrong with you?"
I know. It's so funny because sometimes the reason we did gold in the front was so that people wouldn't know, like the beads would be kind of in the back, like you don't see. So
Yeah.
people wouldn't look at you like, oh, you have anxiety? Oh, I know that bracelet. That, and people do that to me actually. I have big fans who know
Yeah.
what all the
All,
bracelets mean.
all
And
the
some
bracelets.
days I'm wearing it, they're like, oh, you need work on your communication. I'm like, yes, I do.
So yeah, so
And
I'm like
actually,
a tiny
it
bit.
just
Yeah.
reminded me when people say to you, "Oh, you know what? You have any problems?" Like when people get to know me, right, and they realize, like, "Oh, Sarit's also messed up. Like it's okay," and it's true. Like I don't think that there's that person that you. I've never met the person that I look at them and I think there's nothing wrong with them. Because if
Right.
you're fixed and you're perfect, you're not in this world anymore. You finish your tika and goodbye.
Correct.
And so it's funny how people keep looking to see that everybody's normal and looking to see that, like, oh, you also have issues. Of course, who doesn't have issues, and big issues, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that perspective, and like I always say that. Like we're all human. We all bleed red. We all have our stuff. We're all on a journey. You know. So I'm totally a fan of that. So yes, definitely. So these stones, basically, the stones that you use, like that whole, some of them are like the same sorts, essentially, are what the bracelets are made out of, based on like the type of healing that they provide, type of thing.
Yeah. When you come to me for a session, so you basically choose crystals, and according to what you choose, I can understand what it is that you're experiencing. Like the crystals tell a story. So whatever you're drawn to, even today, like they say, like color theory, paint your room blue because blue is like communication and green is your heart. And, because color theory today, where even hospitals like choose their colors according to what's good for the patient because it's calming. And so when you choose the crystals, I can know according to the order you put it in, and I know according to what you don't take. How many stones you take gives me a reading on the person, and I'm able to sort of, I don't really need the crystals to do healing, but I feel like it really gives me what to focus on and like what the body needs first. So sometimes somebody will come to me and they usually don't tell me what's their issue. They just come and choose crystals, and I kind of don't want to know. I want to see on my own, because let's say somebody comes to me with an addiction, right? Like he wants to quit smoking. But I usually don't deal with the addiction because to me, it's just the body's way of releasing some sort of stress. So I'm not going to take the person's only stress release away, because then he'll start overeating. That's why a lot of times people who quit smoking start to gain 10 pounds, right? Because they were using the cigarettes to relax. And now that when they have stress, they emotionally eat. So I don't usually take away the habit before I don't figure out why that person has the habit to begin with, you know? And
Yeah.
so the crystals give me a direction of what to work on before we get to the symptoms. Like
Hmm.
it gives me the foundation. Like today, somebody came and she had like a skin issue, um, but really we were talking about her dad the whole time, and she admitted that she had a lot of issues with him, and so I couldn't really touch the issue at hand until I didn't go to the root of what everything was sitting on, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I can just share, like, I've had that experience, right? Like I've come and I've picked out crystal. It's the coolest experience for anybody that has not done it. And it's, I think what it does, aside from obviously the real thing, that it really helps you just see like what's the core theme that the person's struggling with. It also builds, I think, immediate trust, because like you meet this stranger, right, that you don't know for the first time, like the first time you're meeting someone like you, Sarit, and then you pick out crystals and the person tells you like, oh, this is where it looks like you're stuck in this type of area or something like that. And it's like, how did you, like, I didn't say a word. So it immediately builds the trust of like, this is not so like crazy, and like there is something to this, and there's a reason that she's able to understand, and like it kind of makes the person feel more normal, essentially, I think, and
Yeah.
and
I
feel
mean,
understood.
I feel bad for therapists like yourself, because like, you'll even tell me, oh my God, we did more in one session than I do in, like, let's say years of therapy. It's
Uh-huh.
kind of not fair because it's kind of a cheat sheet. Like I'm intuitive. So I kind of like, I'll see the whole story and be like, okay, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I cut
Right.
to the chase very quickly. But it's not in replace of therapy.
Correct.
I have a
But
therapist that I go to where I just talk. She
hmm
doesn't do anything to me. She doesn't heal me. She's like, I really believe in like
you
and she
got
does like
cut
all
off
the
there for a second.
technical stuff that, she does
Hmm.
like very like normal common healing techniques with me, which I think
Therapy,
is
for sure.
important to have. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to
100%.
take away from therapy. It's just a different thing. It's kind of like getting to the front of the line and kind of like dealing with very specific things head on, which I think it would take time to build if you go to a regular therapist, you know?
Correct, correct. I think it like gives you, like you said, I think that they can be a beautiful adjunct, and where like you're understanding your issues in a very clear way, then you have what to work with in individual therapy. And not everybody likes therapy, so this is great for people that are like, I don't like therapy, it never works for me, so that they could try something new. Like I always say this, and people are like shocked when I say it, that like I'm not the biggest believer in therapy, on a like as a global statement. I think it's incredible for people, and I think it's an incredible profession, and I'm a therapist, so I could say it. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm a therapist, I could say it. But do I think it's the be all and answer for everything and everyone? 100% not. I think that it's like one tiny piece of a puzzle in somebody's life. Like you could go to all the therapy in the world, but if you don't, have other ways of self-soothing yourself, and you don't have others, you're not in touch with spirituality on some level. Um, like it'll be like filling an empty, like, a hole, a bucket with a gaping hole. It's not the answer. And I think that because our generation on some level is like so new to accepting therapy, people think like, oh, once I agree to go to therapy, that's it, like I'm good, and I think that we need this education of like there's so many different modalities, everybody's so unique, they need their own recipe. For people it will be multiple things that help them, different things at different times. For some people it will be none of this and a ton of that, but there's a recipe for everybody. So I'm the first person to say like healing and therapy can go hand in hand, and at different times or together or any combination, any permutation that you'd like. So yeah, that's why I'm like, so, and that's also a reason why like I started OKclarity, was because I feel like, oh, therapy in and of itself is not okay. There needs to be the coaching element, the healing element, the nutrition element, the community element of people realizing that they're normal because nobody's normal, essentially, like that's kind of like a real belief that I have.
Yeah. So I agree with that 100%, that there's so many different techniques today. I think that there isn't one best theory. And I know that people want to do that, and they want to do it with Judaism too. Like, oh, modern Orthodoxy is true. Like being ultra Orthodox is true. Like they want to negate any kind of like other way of looking at the universe. And I feel like Hashem allowed for Sephardi, Ashkenazi, Litvish. He allowed for so many levels under the umbrella of Judaism. And, the Torah Shebechtav is very specific. But in the Torah Shebechtav, it's all rhymes and riddles. While the Torah Sheba'al Peh, right, the unwritten Torah is not written. It wasn't until, recently. And so a lot of it is misconstrued. A lot of it is lost. A lot of it is up for debate. And there's a reason for that, because when it comes to the laws, God is like, I want there to be different variations, and I want there to be people to do their own minhagim, and everyone to look different, because the more different something is, the more beautiful it is. Like if we went outside and we looked at the trees and every tree was exactly the same, like it's just not that pretty. But if you go into a garden and there's so many different flowers and birds, and it's like it's there's so many different shapes and sizes, it makes the garden more beautiful. And it's the same thing for Jews, and it's the same thing for healing. The more variation there is, the more selection there is, the more truth there is in that thing, the more beautiful that thing is. I'm cracking up because I'm like looking behind me, like in the video, and I'm like, you can see my little piggy, and
That's
it reminds
adorable.
me, it's so cute. One of my clients gave it to me because
Yeah.
I was telling her how she has to be a little bit selfish, and she's like, oh, when I think of selfishness, I think of like Miss Piggy. And I'm like, it's okay, you could be Miss Piggy. So when we worked on this issue and we got over it, she gave me her Miss Piggy
Miss
doll.
Piggy.
And it's so cute. I always keep it near my bed.
It is very cute. It is very cute. It's your
Is it
video
cute?
for me at least is a little bit like grainy, so I couldn't even see it clearly. So it's good that you brought it to the
It'll
forefront
it'll
for.
it'll come up. It'll come up on the.
Yeah, it probably will. It's probably just like the connection for the live. Okay, so I love that. What would you say, Sarit, is the best way for people to heal themselves, like on their own,
Oh, and
let's say?
there's
Like, what would be your,
if you really want to know what's on my bed, now we
yeah,
can really go there. And
okay.
there's my crystal.
Oh, are you serious?
This is
What is that?
specifically
Which
for me because it's a crystal that has to do with like opening up deep intention and
intuition?
intuition. And I use it to like kind of clean myself out when I heal people, and to kind of like recharge myself and to open up my thinking. And I have
Amazing.
like on this side, if we're already going there,
Okay.
one of my clients she sent me this statement. It says love. You see that it lights up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like I always keep around myself the things that remind me to think positive, to you you know, you don't need to have everything in order to feel love. You don't need to have a husband to feel loved. Um, you don't need to have parents to feel loved. Like you can love yourself. Like you love is something that's accessible to every single person.
Hmm. Yeah, and that was actually something I wanted to like discuss if we had a few minutes. Also, like, how would you like? I guess what one of my questions that I had for a while was like difference between self-love, self-esteem, confidence. I don't know if you want to go into that, or if we should talk about some ways that people could work on self-love that's not necessarily whether they're in therapy or not in therapy or in coaching and healing or not. Like what would you say are the best ways that they could work on that on on their own?
I would say the number one thing for starting self-love, and it's the ABCs, the foundation, is really your inner dialogue. People think that it's your thoughts, but I think there's something deeper than your thoughts, because I for years were tried to do positive thinking and it didn't work for me, right? Because I didn't realize that my inner dialogue was so toxic that it negated anything I was thinking anyway. So I'll give you an example of what inner dialogue is versus what positive thinking is. So positive thinking is oftentimes, like they tell you, fantasize about something that you want, imagine it, feel it, connect to it, and that's very good. But if, let's say I forget to do something, or I'm not able to do something on my own, and I look at it on my list and I think, oh, you're so stupid, Sarit. Like, you always do this. You never finish anything. You. This is like the third day in a row. This is on your list, and you know, you're just not capable. And I start to like trash myself in my mind, and I start to put myself down. So it doesn't matter that 5 minutes ago I thought, oh, you know, I could see myself, you know, wealthy, and I can see myself, because blessings come to a person who likes themselves. I always say money is like an energy. Like, think of it like a woman, right? Um, you don't want to chase it too hard, because if you chase a woman too hard, she's just disgusted by you. She feels like you're a stalker. You also don't want to ignore her, because then she doesn't feel seen or heard. You kind of want to be confident around her, right? You want to feel like when a girl is attracted to a guy, she wants to feel like, wow, this guy really likes himself, like in a healthy way. Like, he's so kind to himself, and obviously he's going to be kind to me, you know? And so let's say a kid spills something, and the first thing we say to the kid is, it's okay, let's clean it up. Instead of, oh my God, I can't believe you spilled this. Now what are we going to do? Shaming, blaming. So that's really a person's inner dialogue coming out on the person in front of them. Because if you get upset at your kid for spilling something, that's probably what you would get upset at yourself for, right? The way we talk to our children is for sure the way we talk to ourselves. So you have to first ask yourself, what am I thinking when I do something wrong? What am I thinking when I look fat in the mirror? What am I thinking when I eat the wrong foods? Am I saying, oh, here you go again, you can never stick to a diet. What's wrong with you? Do you know? But if you change your inner dialogue, let's say you ate the wrong thing, right? I'm the queen of that. So I can say that I'm really working on this. When I eat the wrong thing, I retrain myself to think, okay, Siri, you know, you're still with an old habit of using food to comfort you. That's okay, but you know what? This week, 80% of the time, you didn't do that. Like, wow, I'm so impressed with you. You're really doing great. I'm proud of you. I don't put myself down. I don't sit in it. I don't stay in it, you know?
Yeah,
So
I
I
love
think
that.
changing your inner dialogue, comes way before positive thinking, because otherwise it just cancels out the positive thinking. And
Yes.
one of the tips I give people to do is end whatever statement you're telling yourself with either my love or my child, right?
Mm.
You're not going to say, oh, I can't believe you did that, you idiot, my love, right? You're going to say, okay, next time, my love, or my child, right? If you talk to yourself as if it's your child, you're going to speak very sweetly to your child.
Right. I love that. I definitely like I could identify with that. I feel like it's something I've been working on even myself a little bit, but not like I now that we're speaking about it even on this live, like I feel like I want to work on it more. And I completely agree. Like it's harder to change your thoughts. It's harder to some people say like, oh, thinking like doing that like meditation visualization never works for me. And I can agree with that on some level. And especially like changing our thoughts is really hard because it's like we have thousands of thoughts a minute. But if
Right.
you catch yourself when you're actually speaking to yourself, and sometimes we say these things out loud, like whether somebody's around or not around. So I feel like even if you want to just work on those, the ones you say out loud, like, oh, I'm such an idiot, I'm such a klutz, I'm such a this, I'm such a that, like all those nasty hits at yourself. Like, would you say that to someone that's like in your
Right.
house? Like, would
Well,
you say that to your mom? Would
I'm
you say,
very lucky that my closest friends, when I do say something like that to myself, they'll call me out and be like, Sarit, how can you talk to yourself like
yeah,
that? And like they forbid it. So when I'm talking to those friends, they guard me. Like I know when I'm around them, if I put myself down, they're going to go hard on me. So I'm very careful to never say anything negative about myself. And I think people can tell their friends, hey, can you be my showmare today? Can you make sure that if I talk negatively about myself, that you call me out on it? And
yes,
after a while, you kind of get into the habit where you don't do that.
yes. I love that. I think I'm going to start doing that as well. Like, being the person that calls other people out. And also, I think it's a very loving thing to do, to be the person that calls other people out, but also to ask people to call me out. I think it's really
I have
important.
my friend Joyce. If I say something bad about myself, she makes me then say 3 things good about myself. So
Wow. This is a good
yeah,
friend.
very good friend.
Love that.
She goes crazy on me when I speak bad about myself or I show any disappointment in anything I do.
Wow.
So it's really nice. Like she's one of the people that I would say really helped me change my inner dialogue, my outer dialogue. It wasn't even my inner dialogue. It was how I spoke about myself, even to my
To
closest
other people.
friends.
Right,
Yeah,
because I think that that's an easier, like it's the more external, like the more external the layer is, the easier it is to fix. Like our thoughts are even more internal than that. So it's like what you say out loud is easier to fix than what you say to yourself in your head, but that's easier to fix than your actual thoughts. So like start from the most external layer and then work your way inward, I think is really good advice, like you said.
right.
Amazing. Anything else you want to share before we wrap up for today, Sri? I loved everything we spoke about, really. Thank you.
First of all, I wanted to say that I really love what you do. It's
Thank
OKclarity. I think
you.
it's such a beautiful thing. I think you're
Thank
such a
you. And I'm
beautiful
honored
neshama.
that you're on OKclarity. Yes.
No, for sure. And I wanted to tell you that you know I really appreciate that, as a person who's a therapist, you're a therapist, and that as a single frum woman, which is even harder, um, you're always getting back up. You're always putting your best face forward. You're always facing, all of your insecurities. And I don't think anybody really understands what it means in the frum community, to not be married and to sort of like put your best face forward, because the first thing people tell you when you're single is like, what's wrong with you? Or like, why? Like, you look normal, as if like something's wrong with a person
You have to
who's
have some
single.
defects.
Yeah. Um, or like people will come to me and be like, oh, she's single, what's her story? Like as if like there's
Yeah.
some sort of crime that was committed,
Hmm.
and like I think we have to remember that at the end of the day, whether it's our traumas that we went through in our childhood, whether it's our parents, whether it's our experience as a single person in a community which loathes the single people, that is all from Hashem, and that it's part of Hashem's destiny for us, and that we try to fix ourselves, we go to therapy, we do healing. At the end of the day, we also have to recognize that Hashem's will is involved in the story, and that we have to do our maximum hishtadlus to free ourselves from any sort of trap that we're in, but also to remember that this is something that Hashem wants to some
Exactly.
degree, and that we have to understand at the end of the day, we also have to have emunah, and that we have to have emunah that everything comes from Him and everything has a purpose and everything is good in this world, even though it's painful.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah. So,
I have to make this into a T-shirt, but I always say that people's trauma ends up, if it's done correctly, becoming their superpower.
mm, yes. I feel like you've told that to me before, and I love it.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it's very true.
I would agree. And I think you could even switch the word trauma for insecurity, like I think that like whatever we overcome, whatever insecurity we overcome can become our superpower. Sometimes the things we struggle with the most are the things that we are meant to use the most, and I know like we've even spoken about this, like speaking in public is hard for me. Even doing a live on some level gives me some anxiety because it's like a public forum, whether that's because I'm single, not single, I have no idea, but it is what it is, right? And like part of me feels like it's my struggle because it's also where I have strength. So it's like you have to master this, because once you do, that's like your, you know, like a door will open for you in that way. So
Yeah. So
I
one
think
of the
about it
things
like
I
that
always,
too.
yeah. So one of the things I always make sure to pay attention to is like, what am I afraid of doing? And then I make myself do that thing,
You're
because I'm like,
good
oh,
about
how come,
that.
how come, the forces that be don't want me to do this thing? Why are they putting so much fear in me? And then it sort of challenges me. Like I decided that I'm only ever going to have one fear in this world. And I keep trying to increase this fear, and I keep trying to make this fear so huge that it takes over. And that is that I end up missing opportunities, and that I don't grab opportunities that Hashem sends me, that I might look back at my life and say, oh, I should have, like, why didn't I do that? Like, I try to increase that fear so that I'm constantly thinking, what should I do now? Like, what can I embrace, even though it's scary? Like, to kind of live in a fear of that, I wouldn't really fulfill my purpose. So it motivates me to do things that normally I'm very uncomfortable doing.
Well, I don't think you've ever shared that with me, and I love it. Like I'm gonna try to adopt it for myself, to make
Mm-hmm.
that fear so big. The fear of basically like the fear of missing out, but in a healthy way. The fear of
Exactly.
like letting your future self down.
Yeah, because really, if we give into our fears, then we're trapping ourselves. It's one thing if Hashem is blocking me from something. Like, if Hashem decides that I'm only 5'2", because I'm only 5'2" and not 5'8", so that's a block that there's not much I could do about it. I could wear heels, I could try to help myself a little, but I'm not going to be able to get to become 5'8". But if I do have freedom over something, and I do have control over something, and I'm letting a fear that's in my mind overtake me, then that's on me, and like, Hashem didn't give me that block. So that's on me. I always think about that.
Correct.
Like, if Hashem didn't want me to
Sounds
have
good.
that, then he would have made it that I can't have that.
Correct. Correct. I love that. All right, sweet. I really appreciate this time that we had together. We're definitely going to do this again, Amar Hashem.
Yes.
And
See how
everyone.
easy that was? That was
Yeah, it
so
was
easy.
awesome. It was awesome. Really, really amazing. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. Thank you. I have a 1:30, so I'm like trying to just watch the clock, which we're running perfectly on time. So thank you, Sarit, for real. And thank you everyone for tuning in. And God willing, this will be on our podcast as well. And and I'll share it with you. So we're good. Love
Have a
you.
good night.
Thank you
Love
so
you.
much. Have a good night. I'm jealous that you get to go to bed. Have me in mind. Take care. Have a good one. Bye bye. Thank you
Bye.
everyone for tuning in. Bye bye.